Hey everybody, this is Pat Monahan here for your weekly Patcast. This week is Butch Walker. He's a good friend of mine. He's a songwriter, a musician, a producer. Some of the artists that he's worked with, other than Train, are Marvelous 3, Pete Yorn, Avril Lavigne, Midtown, Academy Is, Katy Perry, Weezer, Gavin DeGraw, Pink, Taylor Swift, Fall Out Boy, a million others. We toured with them right when we started back up with Hey Soul Sister. And then the record after that, the record after Save Me San Francisco, he wrote songs with me like We Were Made for This. He toured with us during that time and then recorded California 37. He's an old friend. He's very smart, super funny guy. Seemed like the perfect candidate, not just for a podcast, but the very first podcast. So I asked Butch from LAX. I was like, hey, man, do you think when I come back to LA you could be my test subject? And he said, that sounds like a terrible idea. Of course I will. And so he is now infamous and famous for being the first podcast that I've done. So I probably wasn't at my best, but he was definitely at his best. His stories were incredible. This interview was recorded back at the beginning of 2013 in his studio in Santa Monica. At the time, Butch, he was working on the new Fall Out Boy record and his own record. He won't talk about the Fall Out Boy record because he wasn't allowed to at the time. But his new record is out. It's called Peach Tree Battle. Peach Tree is kind of every street in Atlanta. So Butch is from Atlanta. It's probably where that name came from. It's out now. His single is called Coming Home. I've heard it. It's some of his best work I've ever heard. He's on tour through November. He's probably out with his bass player, Sinclizzle, or Jake Sinclair, whichever he's going by at the time. He's very hip-hop and very street. Let's see. He'll be touring with those guys through November. And he has a new documentary that's out now, too. It's called Out of Focus. These weren't out at the time of the interview. So, also, one not-so-fun piece of news is that Butch's father passed away just recently. And as you'll hear in this podcast, there's a lot of stories and songs that had his dad to credit for those. And he meant a lot to him. So I'd like to dedicate this Patcast to him, to Butch's dad, Butch Sr. Here he is, Butch Walker, on the Patcast.
What do you do when nobody's looking? Nobody's looking. What do you do? What do you do when nobody's looking? Nobody's looking, looking at you. You got to get it while the getting is good. Laugh when you can, cry when you should. You got to give it till the giving is gone. Do what you can, then you move on. What do you do when nobody's looking? Nobody's looking. What do you do? What do you do when nobody's looking? Nobody's looking, looking at you.
So this is my first podcast ever, and I am super excited that my friend Butch Walker accepted my invitation to be the first person that I interview. So, hey, Butch Walker.
I'm honored and delighted, Pat. Thank you.
Well, you know, I asked you before anybody else, first of all, because you may be the most talented person that I know, and also...
Here's that 20 I owe you for that.
Yeah, thanks. I admire you for a lot of different reasons, and so we'll get into all that. But let's go to
Well, thank you, buddy.
let's go to your past a little bit, so that people who don't know you will know you a little bit. I love the story about Kiss. Can you just tell that story really quick? Because I think it's so cool.
Well, when I was 8 years old, this kid, Andy, brought a record to school. And at that time, all I'd really listened to were the Monkees and Elvis Presley, whatever my mom had. And this kid in second grade brought Kiss Love Gun. And it was an album with, on the cover, these four guys dressed like women with tons of makeup on, with lots of half-naked women at their feet, and it was very much looked like a Marvel comic because it was illustrated.
Yeah,
and
totally.
it was like, well, I'm in on this. I'll take this. And then listening to it, it was incredibly, it was so loud, and I'd never heard music like that before.
Had you been playing any instruments up until then?
Drums. I'd started playing drums a little bit, but not really taking an interest to it until I heard this band.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Right.
and then I begged and pleaded for my parents to take me. I can't remember if it was second or third grade when this finally happened, but I
And
finally.
this is in Georgia.
This is in northwest Georgia in the
Right.
mountains, and I was in a little town called Cartersville, and I begged and pleaded for my parents to get me Kiss tickets because I saw a TV commercial come up that said Kiss is coming to Atlanta to the Omni, and
Yeah.
I begged for my birthday. I was like, make it my birthday and Christmas. I don't care. They're in November and December, so just
Yeah.
make it both. I don't
Yeah,
care because the concert was going to be on New Year's Eve. So
Man, if my kid asked me to take him to Kiss on New Year's Eve,
Can you imagine?
I would just. You would have to be a real good kid.
Yeah, I think I was. My two older sisters got to go just by default, and they weren't even really big Kiss fans. It was all basically me. But you can imagine an 8, 10, and 12-year-old getting taken to see Kiss. And my dad being
This is the
obviously...
best part, yeah.
Yeah, my dad being, at the time, a complete hater of probably all things, not only rock and roll, but Kiss, and especially because of, he was a kind of a rugged, blue collar country music
And
loving.
his name is Butch as well, right?
Butch Senior, and he took me to the concert with mom and both girls, and I mean, I'd never seen anything like it. I'd never been in a room with that many people, not let alone half of them dressed like the members of Kiss out in the crowd.
So everybody had masks on or paint or
Everything,
something.
yeah. And it
What did you guys have on?
reeked of pot. I'd never
Right.
smelled pot before. I was like, what is that smell? Somebody's got fireworks.
And you're just wearing blue jeans and a whatever, right?
Or whatever an 8-year-old kid wears. I don't even know. But it was whatever mom gave me to wear that day probably. But I just remember the smell of pot everywhere, and that was the first time I'd ever smelled that, and it was just a thick haze of it over the Omni. And my dad just kind of freaking out a little bit, sipping on his beer. Everybody had a big solo cup full of beer.
Now, as a parent yourself, you can think what was going on in his mind. Like, I really fucked up. I shouldn't have brought my kid here.
That's exactly what it was.
Concert.
You could tell.
I'm really regretting it.
You could see it in his eyes, and my mom was pretty conservative too around that time, and the joints were being passed over the kids to other teenagers, and I was just sitting there going, this is scary and awesome. Like I was frightened, but it was awesome. And then the first band came on. They didn't even
that
cut
was
the
your
lights
first
off.
concert, and that must have still been exciting because it was
amazing.
Your first of anything.
Well, just because of the energy level and the blood rush I got from seeing and hearing how loud it was and how intense the light. I mean, that's kind of like getting thrown into the belly of the beast for your first concert ever. Like that's like going that's like the circus on acid. Like the circus wasn't even interesting to me after seeing Kiss at the height of their.
Have you ever gone to
craziness.
a circus on acid?
Later, we'll get into that one. That was when I was 9 or 10. But no, I'm sitting there. My dad is freaking out. The opening band's playing. It's a band called Piper playing, and the lead singer. Well, you do because the lead singer was Billy Squier.
Wow.
But nobody knew that, and they had to play with the house lights on because Gene Simmons is an asshole. But they were playing, and
it's kind of genius, like old '80s, the way they did business, where they would get the shittiest local band possible.
Yeah.
Just find the worst band possible.
Just to make them look like it's smoke and mirrors. So it's like,
so Kiss did
you thought
the same
that was
deal.
good? Yeah, exactly. Probably so.
Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine, especially leaving the lights on, it's not that exciting
But
to
man,
see.
Billy Squier, man, still so great a singer.
I still remember that because technically that was the first show I'd ever seen was the opening band. It was my first concert. So they were the first band I'd ever seen live. And I was blown away because this guy was, and this was Billy, he was like, spinning around and taking his guitar off. And I learned this from Billy Squier, believe it or not, was every song, the guy would throw his guitar 50 feet off to the side of the stage and his roadie would
That's
catch it.
That's where you got it?
I got it from him.
I stole that from you for that one tour. And we broke a few acoustic guitars, but
there's a knack to it.
Man, you throw like 35-pound
women.
well, yeah, women, but your guitars are not acoustic guitars. I mean, you launch those things. I've seen your guitar techs. You keep the same techs, right?
Yeah.
Because he's the only guy that can catch like that.
Yeah, one-handed even.
He's amazing.
He's a monster.
I've seen him.
Yeah. But I do that all the time, and that was like.
So you learned that from Billy Squier
I learned
when
it
you
from
were
that
8
years old. I saw that because it left a lasting impression. Seeing
Was that
happen.
when you were like, oh, I got to play guitar, man?
That was it probably. Because then after that, Kiss played, and
that was it melted your brain.
Yeah, Ace. It wasn't even the contact high that melted it, but it was when Ace like actually. Played his guitar solo and took his guitar off, and it was smoke was pouring out of the pickups and sparks were coming out of it because he was kind of a technical whiz.
Really,
you had to be good at something, right? So,
I don't know much about Kiss actually.
Well, and then it was hooked to a grappling hook or something and an invisible wire, and he takes it off and it's going crazy and feeding back because there's somebody over on the side of the stage like making his pedals go crazy and stuff, and then he lets go of it and there's a spotlight on it and it just takes off up into the rafters and then blows up, and then 25,000 stoned teenagers went berserk. And I just was like, my mouth was wide open.
And were you afraid to get excited because you were with your parents?
No, I never hit it. I mean, I left that concert that night, and I still remember I left in the middle of Beth because my dad took us thinking it was over because he didn't even know what an encore was.
Yeah.
I was so mad. We were walking out, and I heard Beth start the piano ballad because that was the big hit at the time.
Yeah, that was Peter Criss. That's the one thing I know
the
about.
The drummer, yeah. So they came back out and played. My dad, right when the lights went out the very first time, and they left the stage. My dad was like, "Show's over, we're out of here."
What was the thing that happened with your dad where a guy kept hitting him?
Oh no, this guy dressed like Gene Simmons was sitting behind him, and he was already like he was back there with like he had a bunch of beers already back there with him in the solo cups, and he kept like he was kind of being rambunctious and he kept spilling his beer and it kept hitting my dad. My dad had this brand new leather jacket on that his mother had gotten him in like I don't know, like for his birthday.
And your dad is just like you, right? He's kind of like Elvis, where he's very soft spoken and great natured, but man, just don't.
Yeah, you don't mess with him. Big Butch, and he. My dad finally got so mad. I remember when the lights went out for Kiss. That's when the beer went all over him, and my dad. I just looked over and I could see between flashes of people's flash bulbs, like fleeting glimpses of my dad with his hands wrapped around Gene Simmons' neck, and choking him out.
Yeah.
And I didn't even care because the band was starting. And
do you know what he said to him?
I can't remember exactly, but it was
probably wasn't.
It wasn't nice.
It was probably like, I hate your music, and you made me bring my kid here.
It's like I'm not even Gene Simmons,
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, that's an amazing story, man. My dad hated the music that I loved, and he would just try to talk me out of it every single moment of my life.
Yeah.
But you actually remind me of Elvis because I know that you got some cool stories. Like, I always wish that I could have kicked somebody's ass, but you actually could. And it's just not something that you would naturally want to do. But you've had an occasion to make sure that people know that they shouldn't mess around with you, right?
Well, if anything, if I learned anything and there was a lasting impression, it might have been my dad's claws around some guy dressed up as Gene Simmons' neck.
That's one of the things that I admire about you. You're the sweetest guy in the whole world, but if you take advantage of you, that's not going to be good for anybody.
No, the Scorpio comes out. It's definitely.
I think it's just kind of the right way to be.
Well, growing up in a small town. And seeing how my dad, kind of clawed his way to the middle, being a hard-working, guy, and he was the same way. He was the life of the party, but not a good man to cross, and had a very short fuse.
Who influenced you more musically, your mom or your dad?
Oh, my mom. God love my dad. He's, as he would say, he's like, I can't even play the radio good, because he did not inherit one bit of.
I've met your dad,
skill.
And he doesn't sound anything like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was at your show in Nashville, and I was so impressed that they were both there. Both your parents were there, and you. Another thing that you did that night was you just tweeted because you played like it was, I don't know, a 400-person club, but you filled the whole room up with a tweet hours before. That's amazing, man.
Yeah, well, we just wanted to. I mean, you would do the same. But like with me, it's like I think most of my fan base is online, and there's not a lot of people out there promoting it anywhere. So usually I'll just promote it on there, and that's how I sell the tickets. And it's kind of fun because you can play a place last minute and do it in a town, and everybody will show up hopefully. But,
right. So I'll just try to just brief the spot between Kiss and today. But so after that, you joined a million bands, right? And you played on every high school, whatever entertainment spot there was, and then. As you were doing that, you were getting better and better at probably every instrument, right?
Trying. I mean, I started on drums and kind of got as far as I wanted to get on drums because the guitar fascinated me a little bit more, and I liked the idea of being able to stand up and move around with an instrument on.
Yeah,
so.
And you're an amazing singer. So you go through high school. After high school, you decide not to go to school, right? You decided to just pursue music?
I kind of knew. I kind of knew by the time I kind of knew all along that I wasn't going to go to college and that I was going to move to L.A. L.A. was the only place at the time.
Is that what you did, though?
I did. I did, right? Like the day I graduated, I left.
Amazing.
And my mom and dad knew it was coming. They drove me to the airport. I was like, I'm going to be out of here as soon as I'm out of school. I even tried to get out of school early.
Did you have any dough at all? Did you know anybody in LA? How did you?
I saved up about $1,500 from being in a cover band. We were playing 6 nights a week while I was in high school, down in Atlanta, which was about an hour away, and I would play 3 sets a night of like covers in like a hard rock cover band.
Right.
And
were you singing as well?
Singing mostly, and singing and playing guitar. And it was the same guys that went out to LA with me. It was my band, and so we were playing underage at the clubs in Atlanta and getting up and going to high school the next day, and pretty much just collecting the money we made from the shows and split it up, and that's how we went out there and lived. And it all went in about 2 weeks of living in LA.
Right, of course. And this is still pre-Nirvana, right?
Oh yeah, this was 88.
This is still hair bands and...
It was the height of hair metal, silliness. And of course we were soaking that up because we were from a small town and didn't know any better. It's like the Midwest and the South at that time. That was the only music that was popular on the radio at the time. It's
crazy. The same thing for me growing up in Erie, Pennsylvania was like...
Oh yeah, that's where I think
Crocus.
Poison was from, like Western PA.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I know that my first concert was Aerosmith, and I think it was, I saw them twice in Erie, and one time, I don't know, I can't remember if Bon Jovi opened for them one night.
Probably.
And then another night, there was like Cinderella or something.
Yeah, of course there was.
All those bands
were
massive. They were just, they meant everything.
Feeding off each other's tail for sure.
And Nirvana definitely just stopped it all.
Obliterated it. But I think I was happy about it because cut to way later, living in LA, after being out there a year, our band got signed at the end of that era, and we got in this big bid. We were the last bidding war band on the Sunset Strip, I think, and major label signed us to a lot of money, and we went and did a record with the big producer at the time. And the big, did the video with the big video director at the time, and, just huge budgets, really ridiculous spending, and we didn't know any better. It was our first experience, so we were thinking, well, this is how it is. This is amazing, and this will never change. Let's go get the band tattooed on us, because we'll never cover it up, because we'll never break up.
Yeah.
And then, of course, within a year of it coming out, and it not really faring well anyway, because the genre and music was changing, people were changing, the scene was changing, and the underground was becoming the popular consumption at the time, which was definitely the scene from the Pacific Northwest, which we were excited about. We loved it. We listened to it, but we were coming from it still from 19 and 20-year-olds' perspective at the time. We were still kids, so we were listening to it going, wow, this is amazing. We suck. Like what we're doing is kind of lame. And
Really, you knew that, or you felt that?
I did. Well, I did anyway. There was maybe me and a couple of the other guys in the band. I don't think our singer really changed. He kind of lived in a bubble, but
he was like, man, this shit sucks, man. We're awesome.
That's right, because a lot of bands were mad about it, and it's like, well, you're mad about progression. You're mad about.
I was mad about it because I felt like I had wasted years on like loving this thing.
But I loved it too, and see, I was a huge Aerosmith fan and all that, and I appreciated all of it. But there was, being such a music fan of all kinds of music, like yourself, it's like this was new to me because I didn't grow up in a punk rock environment. I didn't grow up in this like disenfranchised youth. It was kind of more just like typical white suburban kid.
Exactly.
Who, I played some sports. I got into some trouble,
That's why, I guess that's why I'm so interested in talking to you before I would want anybody else to. I don't know that I'll be good at this, and so I figured you would be kind enough to help me find out, but also
doing great.
This gives me a good chance to get to know you more because we don't really, in both of our jobs, we don't really have time to talk about stuff like this. So we just have to guess a bunch of stuff and just go, I love that guy or whatever. And,
right.
But like, what I find out about the people that I love is that they had a pretty good connection with their parents somehow.
Sure.
Like whatever it was, whether their dad took them to a Kiss concert or, their mom drove them to the airport or whatever. Like that stuff happens to all the people that I admire a lot and go like, oh, there's a decency because you were taught manners or whatever it was that you were taught. That came first. And even though you probably pissed all over it on some level, it comes back and you go like, man, I really need that right now.
It takes a while for it to hit you again. I mean, you're going to be disconnected in your youth, and you're going to go through the rebellious phase and all that. But eventually, when it comes back around, and
then you need
can appreciate it. Yeah, exactly.
And so here you are. You're in L.A. Your band. You're a decent guy. You were raised in a decent way. You're probably hanging out with guys in your band that maybe you're from different kinds of families. But you're all decent guys. You're all trying to make it in this band. Several of you realize that it's over. What you're doing is over. Your singer isn't ready to commit to that yet. What do? You guys break up, or did you just not have...
We did 2 albums, and by the time we did the second record, it was definitely the nail was in the coffin, and we kind of saw the writing on the wall. So the label sent us to China to tour to get out of their hair, pretty much, because it was like at the time.
You went to China
in 91.
In 1991, you went to China.
Yeah, which was not it was an interesting place then.
Wow.
And we were the first.
What part of China?
All of it.
Oh man, like were you there for a month?
Yeah, we were there for 6 weeks. Inner Mongolia, like and it was.
Have you ever been more homesick? You must have just
because there was. Yeah, I mean, there was no internet then. There was no computers. There was no cell phones.
Of course.
So if you wanted to call home, it had to be at the right time of night because it was opposite end of the world and on a payphone or a hotel phone, trying to use a calling card.
China kind of goes out of their way, at least
to make
that
things
time,
a little bit difficult,
and to not know English.
Oh yeah, we had to have a translator, and it was a mess. It was a debacle, actually. I mean, to make that long story short, we got kind of exiled over there. They left us because the last show we did.
That's incredible.
It wasn't supposed to be the last show. It was the second to the last show, and of course. They sent us over there for this massive fee for a lot of money to make and split between us, and we were like, let's do it because we're not getting any action in the States, and we're just driving our label nuts, picking them on the shoulder, going, what the hell?
Because you're kids and you don't understand.
You don't understand why.
Like, why isn't this happening, and why am I not getting rich like the guy on TV? And
right, but they sensationalized this trip to China that we would be like the Beatles over there.
Yeah.
And basically because, we were the first American rock band to ever go to China. And so they were playing it up as this big thing about that. And you would get the first half of the money up front, and the second half of the money you would get when you finished the tour. And so...
How did it really happen?
Well, what really happened was we ended up playing all these huge arenas to in the round, which were sports arenas, to like people in the crowds that had to sit down the entire show and weren't allowed to clap or make noise.
Yep.
And with lots of military police with fully armed sitting there on every aisle. And
so super laid back and very comfortable setting then.
Super laid back. It was very much like an intimate club.
Very California.
Very California.
Okay,
and
so your play, were there any people?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a lot of families. A lot of people spent their like a month paycheck to come to these shows. We were playing in some really small third world towns.
Were there other bands from around the world that were joining you?
No, just us.
Wow.
And I remember they would ask us weird things like, "Can you please play the Chinese anthem tonight?" And
so did you learn?
And can you play this song by this artist that has a big hit right now?
Yeah.
It was really all stuff that we were so full of.
Because think about it, they probably hadn't seen even live music before in their lives.
No, a lot of them haven't. And we were full of piss and alcohol at that point, the height of excess. Like we were all hammered on a daily and nightly basis. Wake up and start drinking.
And you're still under 21 at this point, or are you like 22?
22, I think.
Okay.
And I just remember us getting through all these shows and thinking, God, if anybody could see this, what on a night to night basis, how this was going down, just every little thing,
the fantasy,
36-hour train rides in between every town, and
awful.
It was crazy. And then, to make it to edit it down, the second to the last show, we were playing this town, and this was the only town they had agreed to let people in the auditorium be on the floor and not up in the bleachers because they wanted to control it. They didn't want any chaos.
Yeah.
And so they let people on the floor for it. And so everybody had to sit down on the ground, no chairs. They were all sitting Indian, style, like cross-leg on the floor. And then, we started playing our show. We would get rowdy because we were really over it and we were really rebelling, and they would tell us not to get rowdy, and we would go rowdier. We would go crazier. And me and the bass player would just be like, we would be stripping and peeing in beer cups on stage. We just didn't care. We were like, please send us home. We do not care. And but we needed to finish the tour to make the rest of the money, because the first half of the advance that came went straight to the lawyers and the managers.
Of course.
And we didn't get any of that.
Great.
So we relied on the back half because they took all that money up front.
And how'd that end?
It ended by cut to the end of this second to the last show, which wasn't supposed to be the end. We were only halfway through the show.
Okay.
People they were throwing like money and candy and gifts up on stage, and then it started getting weirder, and then people started running up on stage, and guys and girls were coming up and like pulling our hair and kissing our face.
I love this so much.
And
this has got to be one of your all-time greatest moments, right?
It's pretty great. Looking back on it, at the time it was not great because we were kind of freaked out because we're like,
and you knew.
And so
that the government is not going to like this. Right?
No, matter of fact, they ran us off the stage, and then tear gas started going off, and we got put into a dressing room where we're thinking we're young dumb rednecks from Cartersville, going, feeling like we're the Beatles, man, but we're not, and they're not happy, and they get us in the van, whisk us off. People are like beating on the van, the whole thing. That's the only time we've ever had that experience. It's, by the way, that's never happened in America since, but it's great that it happened somewhere.
Yeah.
But the problem is that caused a whole riot there, and we woke up from the train ride instead of in the next city to play in Beijing at the airport.
Really?
And
they wanted you out.
The translator
was going to pay you, right?
Translator had gone. Our manager had left, and we were sitting here on a train being told by, I can't remember who told us. Maybe it was the translator, and everybody else had left, and the agents from the gigs had left, and everything. They were just like, "You're going home."
Wow. And you're not getting paid.
And we're not getting paid, and we don't have plane tickets to get home, and we don't have any money, and we don't have anything. We have no way to call anybody, and we don't know any. This is frightening. You're in a
and you're 22 years old, and
don't
you're probably
speak
pretty
Chinese.
hungover.
Oh, very hungover, and
Everything is scary.
we literally were just crying and freaking out and trying to figure out what we're going to do, and all of our gear was gone.
Yeah.
There was no sign of our gear. Our gear was in the last town. They didn't even get it to us. So we had,
Incredible.
and that was the other kicker, was that the gear, all of our gear, which was a massive production at the time for playing arenas,
Yeah, you're playing arenas.
came over on a cargo plane, and they were supposed to pay for the shipping on the cargo, and our crew stayed behind. My two crew guys at the time, Ragman and Larry, who I, to this day worship them. Like, they were our first crew guys ever.
Do they still work in this business?
They're two of the most successful in the business.
That's great.
One of them tour manages Kiss and Motley
that's
Crue,
amazing.
and the other one is the guitar tech for Ace Frehley.
Oh, that's huge.
So
Great.
cut to now, yeah.
Great.
But these guys, Larry came from my hometown of Rome. I took him out to L.A. with me.
Yeah.
He didn't even know how to string a guitar then.
Oh, that's so cool, man.
But they stayed behind when we figured out. We tracked our manager guy down who was hiding in his hotel room.
Wow.
And threatened to beat his ass if he didn't get us on a fucking plane. And
like, your tour manager at the time.
Yeah.
He left you because he was scared.
yeah.
And he went and hid in a hotel.
He went and hid in a hotel to try to figure it all out, but didn't even tell us, And so we like tracked him down, and threatened him, and so we ended up getting plane tickets.
The Elvis part that I really appreciate
Yeah.
about you, because I would just be. I'm very full of fear, and I would just be like, "Man, we can't find the guy. Oh, we found the guy. Oh, we're still scared."
Well,
you're like,
we were
"Okay, that guy is gonna get beat up."
we were
soon.
a band full of rednecks
I
from
love
Rome,
that,
Georgia,
man.
and so we ended up finding him. We got plane tickets to go home, but there was still no sign of our gear. So our crew guys decided they opted to stay behind
Man,
and
those
track
two
our
guys are badass.
track our gear down, and they tracked our gear down and rode on top of it in the cargo plane back overseas to America.
That's some cool guys, man.
Yeah, and then when the gear got
You're
back,
still friends with those dudes?
very good friends.
More so than the band that you were with, and especially the tour
Absolutely,
manager, right?
absolutely.
Isn't it funny, like in the beginning, or maybe even...
We broke the band up while we were over there, by the way.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. That's a good ending.
We had already planned out the next band, which would become the Marvelous Three
Oh, cool.
eventually. But
Right.
but the closer to this story, as we get back to the airport, or the guys get back with the gear, and the Chinese had sent it back COD. So we didn't have a pot to piss in, and there was $15,000 worth of cartage fee.
$15,000.
They were holding our gear in in customs there until it was paid for.
And so I'm sure that your manager and your lawyer at the time were very happy to give you some dough.
No, and matter of fact, we had fired all of them while in China. We fired all of them. So we came
course.
home and had no money and no anybody to call or talk to about this.
These are like, you're one of 10 million of these stories.
There's a few.
not with the crazy Chinese part, but the part where everybody takes your money and you're left,
Sadly, I'm not
holding a bill.
and I think probably from experience too, I'm not the only one. That
Yeah.
happens all the time in this
It's
business.
sad.
The more
It still
you
happens.
the more you are in it, the more resilient you get to
Right.
those situations happening. But
So
yeah.
so the Marvelous Three
Yeah.
happens. Do you want to finish any more? Of
No,
that? So the Marvelous Three happens after this, and that's when I meet you.
Yeah, it happened a few years after. We went through a couple of transitions of other bands for about 5 years.
Right, and
just
who
experimenting with our sound.
Were
and
the
stuff.
two other guys
Yeah.
from Marvelous Three also?
Yeah.
And they're also from your hometown and everything?
Yeah, we all.
Wow, that's incredible,
Yeah,
man.
my first real band, was playing with Jace and
When I
Slug.
saw you for the first time, you were on stage, and I hated you because I was jealous.
Oh, please.
And so I was like, that's kind of the way I deal with most things. Like, I hate that guy if I like what they're doing, and I'm like, I want that. And that's how I was with Marvelous 3, because I was like, I don't know what is happening, but this guy is insanely talented, and you were singing great, you were playing great, and then you would get off stage and you would say hello to everybody, and you were just nice all the time. And I was like, this guy's a huge asshole. Somebody's got to take him down. And that's how I kind of sorted out all my problems. It was your fault.
Oh, yeah. Good. I'm glad this is getting out now.
Yeah.
I remember meeting you when we got off the bus or whatever at the time, and that was when our song was. I don't know if our song was just starting to do something at the time. I think it might have been, and you guys.
And was that song "Freak of the Week"? Mm-hmm. Because I want to talk about that song in a second, but go ahead.
No, I was going to say that you guys were starting to. Was that at the same time, or was yours when Meet Virginia came out? Was that before or after that?
It was right at the same time.
It was at the same time.
On an Aware tour.
It was Aware
Records,
that's right.
And so we would connect with certain bands in certain regions for a period of time, and and so we were lucky to be out with you guys for a little bit and play in front of your crowd, and so.
Well, we loved when we heard that. We were like, well, we love these guys, and I remember you saying. I remember these exact words when we met, and you were like, "Hey, man!" It was before we went on and played too. It was like when we were getting off the bus or something, and I remember you saying how, "Man, I'm hoping something's going to happen for us because I've been doing this for a while, and something's got to give." And I was for me, I loved it because then from that point forward, the road to rise started for you guys, and I was excited.
It was interesting for me. Like I talk about having to get sober. I was sober on that tour.
That was when
I just started
on the
being
wagon.
sober, and so I had a little boy at home, and there's a lot wrong with my life, and making
you hinted at that.
There was no money, and everything was very difficult.
Yeah.
So
I remember
meeting
that.
anyone that would listen to my sob story, because I think half the guys in my band were drunk at the time. I couldn't talk to them.
That's funny because it definitely struck a chord with me because we had come from we were given a second chance.
Yeah.
That the industry didn't know they gave us because when Marvelous 3 got signed and we had a song doing well on radio and we met you. We didn't think we'd ever get another chance, and we had come off of touring 250 shows a year for the last 10 years.
You had tasted the work part of it.
That's right. So
and
anytime anybody I knew had and said, "Man, this is tough. I hope something gives soon," then you feel the compassion for them.
Well, I wanted to talk about Freak of the Week because for 10 years after that song, people tried to write that song, and. Here you are developing yourself as a person, but also as an artist. I think that you might not know how influential you were even then. And now, you can look back and go, yeah, I can hear that, I can whatever. But at the time, a lot of bands started to make your sound. And you were doing something that nobody else had done. And now you can look back at a long list of bands that have that sound. Do you realize that about yourself? Or do you try to pretend that you don't know that? Or how because you're such a humble guy, what's the truth of it? Do you really know that about 100 bands were trying to do what you were doing?
Well, I just remembered thinking we always kind of joked about ourselves in hindsight after we broke up that we were 5 years too early and 15 years too late on a few things.
Yeah,
because we were still living nostalgically, in our past with a lot of things we did, down to the image of the band and the sound and the everything, the hooks, the way it was done. It was all somewhat calculated, but based on something that was probably not fashionable at the time.
Right.
So we might have fallen victim to that, but it was also just came from not really giving a shit. We kind of thought this time around, we're like, man, we already defied the odds, and I don't know how we got a song on the radio without even a record deal this time, but let's go out there and not give a fuck. Let's go out there and let's bring back skinny jeans and skinny ties and eyeliner.
That's what it looked like when I saw you, and that's probably why I was immediately mad at you. It's because you guys,
because of the makeup,
you were enjoying yourself, and I was like, these guys have a lot of fucking nerve having fun up there. This is a job.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm doing Jim Gaffigan, but
I like it.
it really was like that for me. Like my family does this thing where my dad, who's no longer here, was an amazing guy, but he would do this thing where if Jack is doing it, the world better start doing it. If he's working hard, you better work your ass off right now. Or if you stop drinking, you better stop. I kind of have that in my blood where if I was struggling, I wanted to see you struggle, and you were loving being on stage, and it was like it made a lot of sense. Like the story you just told made a lot of sense that you got out of China without having to,
we kind of just had to
work in a camp. For 3 years.
We had a zen approach about life and shows and touring and things like that. Like it was like, oh, the bus broke down. Who gives a shit?
We're fine.
We're fine. We're in a bus again. By the way, life is fine.
Yeah, that's right. We were not in a bus. We were in a van. It was a bad van. Yeah,
we were in a van for a long. Same thing. That's what it was. Like we had just come from being in a van again for the next 8 years after China,
right?
And so to even get back in a bus again and have people wipe our guitars down for us after we played, it was we never took advantage of that again. Right. Of having those luxuries and that feeling, and especially having the opportunity to go out there and try to win an audience over and only have sometimes a half hour to do it or have 2 hours to do it.
Right.
We wanted to take full advantage of it.
Yeah.
And there was
it's interesting. You've kind of lived like that, and we'll talk about that more. I want to talk about a million other things, but you want to do a song really quick with me?
Sure.
I asked you if you wanted to do Freak of the Week, which you denied, just because I wanted people to hear the past of what I know of you from the beginning, but. Now, no, and you shouldn't do it. But
okay.
this one is my favorite song that you guys did on with the Black Widows.
Yeah,
and
thanks.
The Black Widows, man, you got a badass band. Jake is such a great partner to have in a band, man. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, I got real lucky.
But no, you didn't, because you surround yourself with great people. Anyway, but I'll talk about that again. But this is closest thing to you I'm gonna find.
California girls, they have a way of moving the mouth just a certain way, saying things that always seem so right. But when the shine wears off at the end of the day, I'm left with the tab and not a word to say, 'cause I see your face when they turn out my light. So I keep another night by this fire and drink some wine. It's the closest thing to you I'm gonna find. New York ladies that drive me crazy. Can't keep up, I'm from the South and lazy. This town stays open too late for these old bones. And maybe it's because it got too many faces, crammed like fishes in compact places. This is why all them seem desperate and alone. So I pick back up the cigarettes, but only for the night. It's the closest thing to you I'm gonna find. Georgia girls took all my pennies. Every time I come back, I fall for a minute. I wake up and wonder why I ever left here. When we spend all night with a drink to the face, get caught up in politics and race. I just smile and shove the cotton further down my ear. And my hands are full of the sticky sap from your backyard Georgia pine. It's the closest thing to you I'm gonna find. Hey, oh no 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 no.
Such a great song, dude.
Oh, thanks, man. It's one of my favorites.
I love that you're writing great music after, 20 years of making records,
Well, thanks for saying that. I think it's probably most people's fear is that
I think it's everybody's fear.
is as they don't want to do the dreaded Lion King record.
Yeah.
After
It's
you
a
just
great
like,
record,
wait a
though,
it
but-
probably is. Yeah.
One of the things that I want to make sure we talk about, along with the fear of not doing good work, your manager, Jonathan, who became our manager because of you, I feel, is he said something to me a long time ago, or several years ago, which is, most people do their best work in the second half of their lives. Why can't musicians? It's kind of,
I like
we've
that. I
created
like
this
that.
false sense of music because that's not what happens typically. People make that amazing first record, but I think guys like me and you are sort of learning how to do it as we go. You're not learning anything. You're like amazingly talented, but I'm learning more about myself as a writer. You feel
I
like you
am
still
too.
got a lot of that?
Absolutely. I mean, every record it's the best thing you can ask for and you'll ever hear is when you think that maybe you've made your best record to date when you do it, but a lot of times it's that shiny new penny disease of like, oh, it's new, so it's better than anything I've ever done.
And you have to feel that way.
You have to feel that way.
Otherwise, there's no sense in moving forward. But then
That's the
when you
confidence.
reflect on it a year later,
Sometimes
you
you're
get
wrong.
a truer sense of what it was.
Yeah, and sometimes you're wrong about that, and then you can go, no, you know what? This isn't as good as my second record, this fifth one or sixth one or whatever. But you get lucky sometimes, and people will agree with you on that. And I've had it's nice when you hear somebody come up and go like, "Man, it's nice to hear you keep getting better," or they say, "Man, you still got it," or whatever. It's like one little thing is all it takes to keep you encouraged that you're not crazy and that you're not just being self-indulgent and just doing it to make yourself happy, but you're actually, you've got something to prove to yourself. That.
What was the moment what was the most difficult moment in your career? Because we all have, I feel like anybody who's lasted this long has a moment of, I'm done with this shit. I gotta just move on and I gotta start doing something else. This has broken my heart too many times. When was that for you? And where were you?
I was in Georgia. I was in Atlanta living. It was after the hard rock band, the hair metal band, and
Is this after Marvelous 3?
No, it's before, right before.
Really?
I think I just this was what was going on is I was going through a divorce. I got married really young, one other time, and I was probably 22. And I think we were together 2 years, and it was very turbulent and not very. It wasn't very healthy for either one of us because she was 5 years older than me, and when we met in L.A. when I moved to Hollywood, and I was 18 when I met her, 17, 18 years old, and
Wow.
Met her in a club, it was just, and then, she was this, rocker girl in a club that I fell in love with, and things seemed right. We moved back to Georgia, and I'm still, the band it dissolves. I come back from China, and I think that was the point where she said, this is all gotta change.
Yeah. And so have you found that moment has been what you spend a lot of time writing about? Like
I wrote a lot about it.
Not necessarily specifically, but the feeling that you had during that time and how uncomfortable it must have been, and then you get to see what people are made of and all that other...
Well, sadly, I wrote specifically about it for several years. I wrote songs about her. I was very, very, very bitter.
Yeah.
I'm sad that I did that. I got some maybe good songs and then a lot of bad ones out of it just because that was my way of venting. But what good did come from it, because she meant well. You know, this was one of those things where I think she saw a kid still 5 years younger than her for a husband, and she had already matured into a grown woman.
Yeah, she was probably ready for a family.
She was way ready. And I was scared to death of that concept at that age. And I still felt like I had a lot to prove to people, and I needed to go tour, and I needed to go play and make a name for myself and be a man about this and about you know, feeling like a failure out of my first band ever and first record deal ever. So it was like immediately get back in the van and start going and playing 200 shows a year, booking them all ourselves, doing everything ourselves. And on the one hand, it was doing great for us as a band, and it was putting, you know, road scars on me and doing all the right things that needed to happen for me as a musician, but it was ruining my love life. And I slept on a couch when I came home, you know, from tour for a year straight, the last year of our marriage. And, you know, we didn't talk, and it was rough. And I remember, you know, I would just get drunk and cry on Jace, my bass player's shoulder every night and be like, man, this is, you know,
this feels wrong.
I don't know if I don't know what I'm doing right here.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know who I'm supposed to be pleasing, myself or her, or, you know, doing the right thing in a band. But it was definitely when I got home and we were finally able to let go and break up and divorce, and then at the time I'd been seeing a lot of my friends' bands along the way that we had been touring with, doing all those shows, take off and get a taste of success, and we were still kind of trudging it out, and no labels were giving us any respect, and none of the local music like supporters were giving us any love. They thought we were, you know, they just thought we were punks, because that's when we started like acting out and rebelling, and our shows were like super crazy and manic and energetic and makeup running down our face and, you know, skinny clothes on and stuff, when it was not fashionable at the time to do that.
Isn't it funny how there's been a period that has lasted still that is very popular?
Yeah.
And that's what everybody's looking for, is that crazy moment and all the makeup and sweat and jumping out into the crowd. And man, I want to see a Marvelous 3 concert right now. There's a lot of fun times, man. Yeah,
definitely. And we still talk all the time. We're still the best of friends because obviously we went through a lot together.
Sure.
And I'm glad. Getting back to the question that you had asked me, I'll finish that by saying that, you know, whenever we ended up, when I got divorced and finally was able to be at peace and let go of that and let her go do her thing, and she let me go do my thing, everything got better.
Oh, that's good.
Everything.
For both of you, probably.
Both of us, because I had been doing nothing for 5 years, been compromising my touring schedule, everything, just to compromise for somebody because I felt guilty. And I shouldn't have felt guilty, because I've been married to music since I was 8 years old, since I saw, you know, my dad choke out a Gene Simmons impersonator. So,
which is it's still gonna, that story still rules.
Yeah.
Like forever.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, you know, ever since then, things were sweeter and things got better and things made sense, and I dedicated my life fully to music at that point.
Like there weren't any other moments. Like, when did you decide we're not going to be a band? I'm going to make records. I'm going to start writing songs for other people or with other people. I'm going to start producing. Like, how did that happen?
Well, if you cut to a few years after when the Marvelous 3 were coming to an end, and we realized that this was not going to work anymore in the modern world, and it wasn't going to work for our label. There was a bad taste in our mouth with them. We held a big concert downtown in Atlanta, that was hosted by the local radio station that always loved us and played us all the time. 99X played you guys a lot too.
Yeah, I saw Leslie the other day. She works at CMT.
Yeah, Leslie, the program director. She's the one
still
who
a huge fan of yours and your bands.
Well, she's the one who put that band on the map. She played our song when nobody would give us any time of day. And then all of a sudden, all the labels started they came bidding.
That's awesome.
After that. But we did our last show as a band. I talked to Leslie about it, and she asked us to headline their downtown concert called Downtown Rocks, which was a free concert they have downtown.
It used to be something else. What was it called? Center City, or what was the one in Atlanta called that they don't do anymore?
Well, there was Music Midtown.
Music Midtown, that's it.
Yeah, and they just started back this year.
Oh, they did?
This year, I think, or last year.
Man, we played that a couple times.
We did too.
In the 99X stage once, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we headlined.
So you headlined that for them, huh?
We did. We headlined one of those, and then our last show ever as a band, we headlined the Downtown Rocks one, which was 30,000 people, and that was when we went out with a bang. Literally, we advertised it as our last show as a band ever.
And then after that show, you guys, basically separated. Did you take a break and then start working with another band, or what?
No, I kind of had decided and made up my mind at that point that I wanted to do something on my own. I just didn't know what it was yet.
And what was it? What was the first thing you did without those guys?
I did a record called Left of Self-Centered, which was a solo record. And, I don't know who I was on that record still to this day, but I think I was just living in the shadow of a band that I had just gotten out of. And so it really wasn't that much of a departure or different. It was just we needed time finally to get away from each other because we'd been together for 15 years straight. Me and Jason Slug, the three guys. So the same core guys who started in Rome hardly ever spent a day apart for 15 years.
That's insane.
And so when we ended the concert, we all had a good cry and went our separate ways. And then I did that record, but at the same time, I was really burnt on touring at the time, and that's when I kind of figured out who I was and what I was going to be. I didn't really want to go do 200 shows a year anymore because we had just done that for a decade, and it was starting to wear on me a little bit. I needed a break and get some perspective so I would enjoy it again. And that's when I started getting calls to do people's records. I had already been producing a lot of the stuff that we had put out, and that's why, like, when people heard Freak of the Week, they realized, they were like, oh, who produced that? And they'd be like, well, I kind of did. And
well, you had some pretty fun producer stories.
Yeah.
That probably wouldn't be...
Yeah,
you don't have to throw anybody under the bus, but you learned a lot.
I learned a lot of what not to do.
Sure.
And how not to treat people by some of the records
me too,
I got.
by some of some similar people.
Yes. And so that being said, people started asking me to come work on songs with them and co-write and produce songs for them. And
did you have a breakthrough experience?
I did. I got asked to co-write this song for a band that had just gotten signed that was another kind of a Marvelous 3 sounding band. I don't mean to say that like they were imitators, but their manager called me and said, hey, can you write a song like Freak of the Week?
Sure, of course. Who was that?
They were called SR-71.
Oh, cool.
And they were out of Baltimore. And I co-wrote the song with the lead singer.
Right.
And the song ended up being bigger than Freak of the Week.
Oh, really?
Yeah. By a margin, but it was a top 5 hit as well, and had done even better.
I just wanted to read you this one thing because when I was just doing a little bit of research on things that I was like, just to see if there was something that I was interested in that I didn't know about. Here are some similars that this website says that are similar to you and Marvelous 3.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So Pete Yorn, you've worked with Pete.
Worked with Pete.
Cherry Monroe.
Don't know who that is.
Me neither. Everybody else, John Foreman, Mara. Mara. Okay.
Yeah.
Maroon 5. You know those guys, right?
Yeah.
Rooney.
No, those guys co-wrote a song with
Okay,
them.
Sam Roberts, The Wallflowers. You know those guys, right?
Yeah.
And Blue. I like that band.
Yeah, Blue.
and tinted windows. Then, influenced by Cheap Trick.
Yes.
That makes sense,
That
right?
makes sense.
David Bowie.
Yes.
Iggy Pop.
Yep.
Motley Crue.
Yep.
Mott the Hoople.
By default. By David Bowie.
Okay.
By way of David
New
Bowie,
York
because he wrote All the Young Dudes.
Right. Yeah, that's an amazing song. New York Dolls, T-Rex.
Totally T-Rex. Absolutely T-Rex.
Excuse me. The Dead Milkmen.
I
That's
opened
a
for the
heavy
Dead
band,
Milkmen
dude.
when I was 15.
Really?
Maybe they knew that. I don't know, because other than that, there's no way I sound anything like
Yeah.
Big Lizard in my backyard
Yeah.
or Punk Rock Girl.
That's a heavy band. So the only ones, the Rolling Stones and Twisted Sister. Twisted Sister, that's a funny thing to throw in there.
I'll take Twisted Sister
Here
because that's weird.
Here are the bands that they say followed you
Okay.
in your sound.
What? I gotta
American
find this website.
Hi-Fi.
We were very
sense.
neck and neck. I think we were both
Ashley
influenced by this
Simpson.
one. Okay. She followed me once.
Yeah,
On
she
Twitter.
followed you.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Avril Lavigne.
Okay. I wrote and produced songs for her.
Fallout Boy.
I worked with them before as well.
And that's awesome.
Yep.
And Lindsay Lohan, because who doesn't want to sound like
She definitely
her?
followed me to my hotel room one night, and I did not let her in.
For real?
For real.
Oh my God, I love that
Called
story.
me at like 6 a.m.
Please.
Go in my hotel room. Let's party. Are you up? I'm like, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. I have
Of
a
course
son.
I'm up.
I'm up. Yeah.
Of course I'm up. I'm giving my kid breakfast.
Yes.
Come on over.
Oh my God.
Lit, pink,
Yep.
the Academy is. That all
Okay.
makes sense,
Yeah,
right?
I worked with all of them.
Yeah. See, there's some truth to the internet, and then there's a whole bunch of bullshit.
There's a whole bunch of bullshit.
You know, so I wanted you to play one more song,
Okay.
and then I'm going to ask you just a couple of like real quick questions. But I don't know what song you want to play, but anything you do sounds pretty amazing, man. That
Oh, that's nice
guitar
of
is probably like 1960
60 old.
60
Yeah,
old,
it's
and
something. Yeah, let me think here. What can I do?
anything. Can be fast, could be a 12-minute anthem that you just wrote.
I'll play something new.
Cool, let's do it. What is it called?
This is a song I wrote. Let me see. Hopefully, I can remember it. It's because it's brand new. It's going to be on the new record. It's called "Let It Go Where It's Supposed to." Let me see if I can. Okay, I think I can remember it. So. I make all my best decisions for the day that lies ahead of me in the morning. I make all the worst decisions in the evening when the poison hits my mind. If it's one thing that my mama said to lock away inside my head and use it when I need from time to time, she said, let it go where it's supposed to. Let your life hang out the window to dry. And if it catches the wind and you never see it again, then I guess it was probably time. Well, my father had this moment back before fast food and strip malls ruled his town. Oh, keep the land or sell it. 20 acres, he had always turned it down. But as the tractors all moved in, and I'd watch as he'd pretend not to show it from the inside looking out, he said, let it go where it's supposed to. Let your life hang out the window to dry. And if it catches the wind and you never see it again, then I guess it was probably time.
all those bones will soon turn into dust. I got a boy to race through hell and just pray he turns out half the man he was. Sorry, I got all freaked out and I lost the last words. I got it. The man he was. You can leave it like this. That when you grow and think you've seen it all, nothing will prepare the fall. Please just take these words before I'm gone. Hey, just let it go where it's supposed to. Let your life hang out the window to dry. And if it catches the wind and you never see it again, then I guess it was probably time. Whoa,
Sorry, I messed it up, but you can leave it
That
like
one's
that.
that one's coming on the next. Is it going to be Black Widow's record?
Just a me record.
Butch Walker, man.
Yeah.
What's the name of that?
Let it go where it's supposed to.
Such an amazing song, dude.
Oh, thanks, dude.
Like when you start talking about your real life, it's I can see how that freaks you out. That freaks me out sometimes.
Yeah, when
too.
I know.
You just hear yourself say it, and you go like, "Holy shit, man! That's like really gonna happen."
I know, and then you forget the next line.
But I mean, there's like that's why I wanted to do stuff like this because there are magic moments that you'll never. I don't know. You just played that song probably for the first time for anybody outside of your close circle, and it's an amazing song, man. I hope that a million people get to hear it and buy it.
Yeah, well, hopefully they will. I'd like them to hear it. I'd like them to come along.
Well, I've been rapping with you a long time, and I don't want to keep you from doing your work today, but I just wanted to ask you a couple of things that my wife thought were great questions. Okay. But you got to make them brief because there's about 30 of them. Okay.
Rapid fire.
What are you afraid of?
Death.
What are you best at?
I'm
Guys that are great at a lot of things always struggle with this question.
controlling everyone.
I can say as a person in a band that you produced, you were great at producing the band.
Cool.
You have to you understand the dynamics of a band. So there's the inner circle struggles that you're very fully aware of that you handle very, very nicely. So anyway,
thanks.
you're good at controlling us. And okay, what's left to do, and how will you do it?
I gotta tour. I gotta play. I gotta play for people.
So you're like you're Willie Nelson.
Yeah, I gotta play again.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah, pack.
Most memorable personal moment, and then the most memorable professional moment.
Most memorable personal moment. Meeting my son.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, meeting my son.
I mean, it seems obvious.
It's
when
cliche,
you break
but
it down because you go like,
that's for
man.
people out there that have kids.
But that's
understand
like
that one.
that's a thing that was like wasn't there a minute ago.
He was
it's
inside.
kind of like a song, except
He was
you
up
don't
in
have
there.
to teach a song how to ride a bike.
That's right.
Unless you
And that's
going to
be the next moment
song.
when I can teach him how to ride a bike.
And so yeah, that's your personal moment. What about a professional moment?
Best professional moment. Probably.
Or even most memorable. Something, it doesn't have to be the best, just something that sticks out. Probably this interview.
This is up there. This is up there. Probably getting to. Oh man, that's a tough one. Well, how do you ask?
Yeah,
that?
there's a million different things.
I don't know if I'm supposed to go back.
Horrible
far.
question.
Moving to LA.
Oh, really?
Like the
most
first
memorable
time
thing in your life.
The day I got to Hollywood
that
when
makes
I was
sense.
18.
And it was like what
From
planet is
Cartersville.
this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I lived in Hollywood when I first moved there. Where did you live?
Hollywood.
Did you live anywhere close to Wilcox
I
and
lived on
Cahuenga?
Whitley and Hollywood. 1 block from there.
Yes.
1 block from there.
Well, there you go. That's
Across
unfortunate.
from Fredericks.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know where that was.
Of course you did.
Yeah, it was a horrible neighborhood, and
Yes.
now I hear that it's just nothing but nice.
Yeah.
I don't want to go there right now. Okay, siblings. You got them?
2 older sisters, Leah and Dana.
Dana cut my hair.
Dana's awesome.
Yeah, she's cool. Are they still in Atlanta
Yeah.
area?
Yeah.
How'd you meet your wife?
This is a good story. I met my wife when I was in Wilmington, North Carolina, playing on the road, doing one of many shows a year in our van back right before Marvelous 3, and she was the bar manager, and the bartender. And I walked into sound check and loaded in our gear and saw her, and I was like, oh, she's cute. I'm gonna go order a drink from her at sound check.
Yeah.
So I order a vodka tonic from her, go pour it out in the dressing room, come back, get another one, and then go back, pour it out, go back and get another one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you want to go get coffee or something? And then
And she's like, what are you talking about? You're drunk.
right. And so we went to get coffee, and then cut to
cool.
later that night. We hung out for a little bit, and she didn't let me make a move on her, which
Yeah.
I thought for sure I
Yeah.
could and would, as cocky as I was
Yeah,
then.
because you're like 3 drinks. What are you doing?
Yeah, so she didn't let me make a move on her at all, and then walked me to the van and poured me in the van, and I got in my back van bench and kind of looked up at Jace, my bass player, and slurred out. I was like, I think I could see myself marrying that girl one day. So,
And then you did.
and then I did.
Well, just for people who don't know Nora, she's a lovely human.
She's amazing.
She's real cool. And
Yeah, she's
and also Jamie Blue.
Jamie Blue Walker.
He's an awesome kid. I haven't seen him in probably 2 years.
Yeah,
So he probably is a giant.
he's a giant
at this point.
He is a giant.
Okay, I'm almost done with these.
I enjoy it.
Okay, there's that, and then there's anyone you want to be more like.
I'd like to be more like her, more like Nora. I'd like to have that mentality of just being a little bit more. I say maybe I've learned a lot and I'm more zen, but I'm still kind of a wound up puppy dog about a lot of things. And
she
she's
seems
a rock.
to be more, yeah.
Yeah,
But that's, you know, that's kind of the good dynamic.
I'd like to take a tip from her and my son and be more stoic like that, but then like my son, be still youthful and whimsical and full of life. And I think that
leads to the next question, since you mentioned him, which is there anything you want for him that you did or didn't have? Anything you would like for him to not have to deal with, or something that you want him to go through just like you did?
I want him to go through everything I went through. As sad as that is to say, because I'll be frightened.
Yeah.
But you can't stop it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't try to stop it. Let it go where it's supposed to. That's what the song's about. And and I think that, you know, if anything, I wouldn't mind him having maybe a brother or sister at some point.
Right.
Because he's a little social butterfly.
Yeah,
you know?
that's cool. I love it. Any favorite holiday?
Christmas, of course, for
Right.
him and me.
A record or song you'd like to take back from having made?
Oh, God. How much time do you have?
You only get to pick one, man. Your career's pretty amazing.
No,
you
but
know?
I'm saying like is that like a song? It can be like a deep cut off of a record or something.
It could even be somebody else's song that influenced you in the wrong way.
Okay.
How about Meet Virginia?
That's a good one, actually. I was gonna say, how about Meat Loaf? How about Paradise by the Dashboard Light?
Man, right? Or all of what was it, Rocky Horror Picture Show?
Yeah.
Man, you have to see Perks of Being a Wallflower. Incredible.
Yeah, I want to see
and
that.
Take you back in time. The author's a friend of mine, and he got to direct the movie. And anyway, so
Awesome.
A couple more. Something said to you that changed your life for the better or worse?
I think probably when the great songwriter Desmond Child worked with me on my very first record ever.
And
when I was 19 years old. And I mentioned a lyric about love or something, and he said in his very flamboyant accent, he said,
what
do you know about love? You're not even a person yet.
Yes. That's
helped.
why I love Desmond Child more than you.
It helped.
Yeah.
More than you.
He's going to say shit like that, and I want to be around. It's like when we had Hoff on our video set. I was like, oh man, I hope something weird happens. And he had a script. It was very simple. He wasn't supposed to even say anything. He was just supposed to like pick some vegetables out on his way to see me. But he wanted to like pick pickles out and all these phallic-y things, over and over every take. He wanted to do it and hit on girls. And so finally the director goes, hey Hoff, can we just do one where you just do it by, you just do it the way it's written? And he said, I'm just trying to make this fucking script work. Yes, that was the moment I was longing for.
That's awesome.
Okay,
that's amazing.
Almost done. So where are you going to raise your son? It seems like you have connections in the South and also here in Los Angeles. Where will you move forward?
Well, I love where I am out here. I'm at the beach in California, and it's awesome. And it's a great place for me after all these years of doing what I've gotten to do, to be able to kind of unwind and not have to deal with the city. But I want him to have to deal with some stuff. Yeah. And I don't want his reality to be waking up and being at the beach every day. I'd like that to be a privilege, just like it was for me growing up when I got to go to, to Pensacola, Florida every year and swim with all the rednecks.
Yeah, it's hard to like have and not want to give everything. Yeah. Because that eventually more damage will be done than, the entitlement that comes with it. A friend of mine is making 2 simultaneous movies about inner city children and color.
Interesting.
And private school children and color. And I was like, which one is more interesting? Which one am I going to want to see? He's like, dude, they're so crazy different, but they're both so compelling because
I bet.
Because the inner city kids have so many things that they're dealing with, but they're also so kind of together. And the private school kids are super together in a lot of ways, but then they complain about the dumbest stuff like the internet being slow. And I was like, oh, I'm that guy. So it's hard to raise your children.
We call it white people problems a lot, but it's kind of what it is. It's like, there's a website for that's kind of funny of people like, the internet is slow today. And it shows like a really sad person sitting there, and it's like...
And, we've all said it, like, come on, dude, really, this is the internet? But...
But that's kind of like, to answer your question though, I've been spending a lot more time back in the South. Basically, Nashville's become like a second home to me. Yeah. And it's only 3 hours from where I grew up and 3 hours from my parents. And I really want my son to get to know my dad and have memories of him while he's here.
It's a great idea. Plus, the family living there and the commitment to like songs and music in Nashville really is like no other in the world.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind him growing up and seeing like life the way I grew up, which was kind of a little bit more simple
and musical.
So it'll be cool to hopefully have that and still come back to California and enjoy this a few times out of the year as well. So
right. I'm going to mention one thing before we close. That's a massive subject that I'd like to capture next time we're together. But it's funny, like what I know about you, and you haven't mentioned it once. You're such a guy that's committed to looking at the good things in life. You went through a house fire that destroyed like almost all of what you created, like as far as probably equipment and awards and your studio and. You didn't even mention it one time today as being something that you wish wouldn't have happened or that bothered you or affected your life in a negative way. It's pretty incredible.
Well, I probably not a day goes by that I don't think about it, but honestly, it does put things in perspective. I think when you realize what you have and that you didn't lose any body.
Yeah.
That you just lost things, and that it was a fascinating time of life. You know,
Well, I'm
something to go
sorry
through.
it happened to you, but I'm really glad that you're
it was
here
for the
and your family.
It was for the best, actually. In the long.
That's interesting.
Like
some of the
looking at
people
it.
that I know that get ill, like cancer ill, and then they recover. I always, like how would you define that illness? And they always call it a gift.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? And they say, I wouldn't know the people that I know. I wouldn't know what I know about myself had this not happened to me. There's all kinds of rewards if you can fight through it.
Yeah, and know the value of not being complacent. Like how like that will cure any boredom or having any sort of self empathy or whatever. You know what I mean? It kind of gives you reason to appreciate your life and appreciate others.
Yeah. Well, you weren't one of those guys that needed that, but I'm glad you're safe.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, just to finish up, why don't you tell everybody what kind of motorcycle you drive so they can envy you, and then you can sign off. And I don't know what you're driving.
I'm currently obsessed with my latest 1971 Yamaha XS 650, which is parked in here at the studio along with about 5 other bikes I have a 1973 BMW R75/5, which is also my baby. That's the one that that very well because I rode it out onto stage during your encore.
I remember
on the last
I might
night
take
of the
a couple pictures of your
You
bikes
should.
back there before we head
Please
out.
do.
But, man, thanks so much for being my first podcast.
I was glad.
I think that we're going to call it the Patcast.
Patcast is
It's
good.
just a couple letters different.
Yeah, I like it.
But you're one of the guys that I look up to in this business, and I think you're an exceptional human being, and I think that a lot of people, if they were more like you, it'd be a really great place and a great business that we're in.
Thanks,
but I think
Pat.
it's getting there.
Thanks,
so,
man.
Thanks for doing this.
I appreciate it.
Cool. Butch Walker.
That was Butch Walker. Don't forget his new EP. It's called Peachtree Battle. His new single, Coming Home. He's on tour now. Go check him out. He's one of the best live shows you'll ever get to see. And Out of Focus is his new documentary. So there you have it. The first Patcast, maybe the best, Butch Walker.